A single lamp glowed in the long library at Windsor when the king slid a battered green ledger across the oak table, and courtiers later whispered they heard him lock the door from the inside, an act no sovereign has done since George III paced these boards before losing America. 2 officers of the master of the household stood sentry outside, sworn to silence. Inside, father and heir confronted the estate that has financed princes since the Black Death and, more crucially, the emotion neither man had risked aloud for 50 years. William arrived straight from a children's hospice in Oxfordshire, still wearing the poppy-red tie Catherine chose that morning to hide the tremor in his left hand. Charles, fresh from the oncology wing of the Royal Marston, carried a slip of parchment marked confidential, Luinian Forecast 2040. The clock ticked twice past midnight before the king spoke. He whispered that the Duchy of Cornwall, the acreage he had coaxed from medieval ploughland into a £1.3 billion sustainability engine, must now pivot again, this time toward empathy capital, a phrase William, startled, would later repeat to aides. Why does this matter beyond castle walls? Because the duchy owns 0.2% of Britain's landmass, 150,000 acres whose rents set village shop prices, and renewable grid experiments that city analysts say will dictate rural employment for a generation. A misstep could upend 30,000 livelihoods, a deft hand could create the UK's first carbon-negative county. The king knows markets smell weakness, and rumours of his prognosis, oncologists give him an 78% 5-year survival if chemo sessions remain uninterrupted, already flicker across hedge fund bulletins. Charles's voice, thin, neither paternal nor kingly, merely human, broke the silence. Please don't make my mistake. Build profit, yes, but build peace first. Enjoy your children. The ledger's pages told the counterstory. 5 decades of 4 a.m. memos on crop rotation, solar bonds, artisan cheese co-ops, each margin note scrawled over by consultants, but very few references to childhood birthdays. William, whose earliest memory of his father is of a briefcase snapping shut, felt the ledger's weight like judgment. 2 floors below, climate control sensors logged a sudden spike. Someone had opened the long-sealed cabinet of Edward VII's abdication drafts. Protocol requires it whenever change of reign rehearsals begin. Staff tell themselves it's only a drill, yet the stationing of household cavalry in full dress at 3:15 for a photographic lighting test hinted at deeper anxieties. William steadied his breath, thought of Catherine sleeping under a silk cap to slow chemotherapy hair loss, and answered, "I'll keep the family angle. But I'll add something else, belonging." Charles closed his eyes. Witnesses, there were only 2, the deputy private secretary and the keeper of the privy purse, later confessed seeing tears glint on his lashes, reflecting the ledger's gilded edges. For a monarch schooled never to weep in public, that droplet was as seismic as a throned speech. What no microphone captured was the king's confession that he had quietly commissioned a study comparing the psychological wellness of Cornwall tenant farmers' children with national averages. The results showed a 12-point resilience boost where community grants had been tied to arts therapy, proof his eco-utopian instincts carried measurable human benefit. "Protect that," he urged. William nodded, committing to ring-fence the funding even if economic headwinds forced other cuts. Outside Windsor's walls, conspiracy theorists spun wilder narratives, that the king's retreat to Highgrove between treatments isn't mere rest but a covert summit with Shropshire biotech founders aiming to grow Dutch-branded nutraceutical hemp, that Catherine's absence from public view shields her from MI5 surveillance after a leaked memo revealed she'd proposed publishing the Dutch's carbon ledger on blockchain. Each rumor finds fertile ground because the palace's new communications embargo, imposed after a tabloid misreported the king's white cell count, feeds imaginations. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Harry dined in a Beijing private room under soft calligraphy panels, pitching Travelist data to executives of a state-linked hotel group. British diplomats tracked the meeting, worried any equity deal could complicate the Duke's request for taxpayer-funded protection back home. The Foreign Office's red file note spoke of reputational cross-contagion if the Sussex brand intersects Chinese surveillance tourism. William knows every Sussex headline gauges public appetite for dual coronations, one televised spectacle, one Netflix counter-narrative. Back in London, Chancellor Hunt requested a secret forecast. How would gilt yields react if Charles delegated more engagements to William before year-end? Treasury modelers predicted a 9 basis point wobble followed by a consumer confidence rally. Britons historically spend more when generational hope replaces medical dread. Those decimal shifts determine mortgage costs for thousands, making the ledger meeting not just dynastic but macroeconomic policy. Historians will note an odd footnote: the ledger itself smelled faintly of bergamot. Charles' valet admitted spritzing it with the late Queen's favorite cologne, perhaps subconsciously invoking her stabilizing aura. William caught the scent, memories flooding of a grandmother who taught him to drive a Land Rover across Balmoral fields and to never complain, never explain. He resolved to adapt half that motto: complain privately when necessary, explain publicly more than ever before. Transparency might be his generation's shield. Data undergirds this drama. Ipsos polling from April shows trust in William at 74%, Catherine at 78%, but trust in the institution only 56%. A 22-point gap the monarchy cannot ignore. The ledger meeting birthed a plan: publish duchy tenant contracts online, demolish the secrecy fueling Republican critiques. Yet transparency terrifies old guard courtiers. One lord sighed that sunlight fades velvet faster than moths. Past midnight turned into 4:07. The king's doctor texted, "White cell rebound within safe range, next chemo could be delayed 48 hours. Charles exhaled relief, then insisted on a 6:30 walk in Frogmore Grounds with William to hear dawn birdsong, a ritual they hadn't shared since Diana took them to Kensington Gardens. During that walk, Charles revealed phase beta of his succession map, an apprentice year whereby William would quietly countersign every council order while Charles still breathes, ensuring no policy vacuum on Coronation Day +1. Cabinet ministers had been briefed. William, stunned, had not. They stopped near an ancient cedar. Charles touched the bark, whispered that he'd planted its twin at Highgrove the day William was born, and that twins share fates. "So listen to the wind in this one," he said. William heard gusts rustling like distant cheering crowds. The king smiled. Nature teaches continuity better than any coronation rehearsal. Cameras captured none of it, yet Downing Street's Dawn media grid suddenly featured a new phrase in every minister's briefing note: stewardship for future families. Coincidence? Or the cedar already speaking? By breakfast, social networks exploded over a blurry platform photo of Charles gripping the train handrail. Analysts zoomed in, claiming to see bruising. The palace remained silent, letting speculation burn itself out. But William's digital team quietly seeded feel-good clips of duchy apprentices learning regenerative agriculture, a 17-year-old named Poppy explaining how mycorrhizal fungi saved her family's grazing fields. The algorithmic duel, fear versus hope, played out in real time. The day's court circular listed only one engagement for the king: private audience, Prime Minister. Yet an unpublicized second meeting followed. The Archbishop of Canterbury arrived with a draft for a slimmed-down oath removing archaic references to enemies in the sea. It said William initialed the margin while Charles, fatigued, closed his eyes, trusting his heir's judgment. Trust, once rationed in that family, now transfers faster than regalia. Evening fell. Catherine FaceTimed, voice soft. She teased William about his tie, thanked Charles for humming her favorite Welsh lullaby during the walk, proving news travels fast in palace corridors. The king promised to plant bluebells outside Luinian in her honor next spring. It might be his garden, legally, for only a little longer, yet spiritually it remains his forever, and his son knows it. As the castle lights dimmed, a courier left through Henry VIII Gate carrying the ledger's updated roadmap, destination, Pulhelly, where duchy managers would gather by candlelight to decode margin notes before dawn. Somewhere along the A40 the courier's tires hissed on rain-slick asphalt, and Britain's future sailed silently beside hedgerows. When you feel that hush tonight, remember the cedar's lesson: succession is not a sword drop but a seed already sprouting beneath our feet. Like, subscribe, and stay with us. Next episode we uncover the classified aerial route draft titled Operation Sunrise, mapping the heir's first 72 hours as sovereign, and revealing why an obscure Gloucestershire hamlet has been designated Sanctuary Zero for the royal grandchildren if Westminster crowds turn restless. Royal history writes itself in margins. We'll keep reading them aloud to you before the ink dries.